After all that, sorry, hi again, everybody. I was on mute, obviously. I just want to say thank you for joining us here tonight. We welcome again Yuri Cataldo, Yale drama student, now crypto and DeFi expert, working full-time and getting his executive MBA at MIT. He's been very generous with his time in helping our audience understand the world of DeFi and crypto and Bitcoin. For those of you who have already enjoyed talks 1 and 2, please know that you're in for a deeper understanding of the DeFi space tonight. And we have one last talk scheduled for February. These talks will be made available on our website at the end of the series. What else can I say? I think leave it at that. Please feel free to post your questions and answers, questions on the Q&A chat box, and we will provide the answers towards the end of the talk. And just a little announcement about YIA. YIA, it stands for Yale International Alliance. We are a group of alumni from Yale whose mission is to inspire and encourage the global community to learn and take up causes that are of vital interest in our society today. And with that, I bring you over to Yuri.
Great, thank you so much, Peggy, and thank you for the Yale International Alliance, and welcome everyone for this third conversation in the series tonight about DeFi. And so actually tonight, I'm going to do something in addition to talk about DeFi. So I, as part of what I've been doing at MIT, have been working with a very large organization about finding projects and how to categorize projects and how to spot scams. And so tonight, along with giving you a basic overview of what's happening in the DeFi space, I'm also going to do a quick ending part of, if you're interested in finding new projects to potentially get involved in or buy their coins, how to do that, what to look for, what are the telltale signs, how to spot scams. And again, I'm not a financial advisor. So just kind of take this as just information only. But I want to make sure that if this is something you're interested in doing, that you have all of the information in place. And so with that, we'll get going. So DeFi, if tonight is the very first time you've heard of DeFi, DeFi stands for Decentralized Finance. So it's basically an umbrella term in the financial services where we have public blockchains, primarily on the Ethereum network. And basically what happens is in the decentralized finance space, what's happening is the middleman, like a traditional banking system, the bank is removed. And so you have a lot of peer-to-peer networks, but it allows individuals to earn interest, borrow, lend, buy insurance, potentially trade derivatives, trade assets, or a lot more. It's faster, doesn't require paperwork or a third party. And again, as we've been talking about this entire time, because it all happens in the blockchain network, it is on a global peer-to-peer, directly, back and forth to individuals network that's not rooted through a centralized system. And so I'm going to get into some more of the possibilities of what's happening and what's available. And hopefully some of these terms will sound familiar if you listen to the other couple of talks that I did. So first and foremost, DeFi was made possible because of Ethereum. And if you remember from my last couple of talks, Ethereum has given the blockchain space a wonderful bounty. So NFTs are possible because of the Ethereum space. Smart contracts possible because of Ethereum. And so those two items will come back later on, but smart contracts particularly are very important in the decentralized finance space. And again, this is all being built mostly on top of Ethereum, which is the world's second largest cryptocurrency platform. There are other applications, other blockchains right now that some decentralized finance projects are being built on. Cardano, Solana are two of the other big ones. But again, I just want to talk about some of the major ones, just because it's easy to get caught up in the weeds when you start looking into these. The most important part of this and why a lot of these have started on Ethereum is because of the smart contract applications. If you remember from my last talk, or even the last two talks, what smart contracts do allow for automatic execution of transactions once certain conditions are met. So what's able to happen is projects are able to pre-code what they want to have happen in this decentralized finance application, and then let things run automatically. Now, Ethereum runs on a programming language called Solidity, and Solidity specifically has been designed for creating and running smart contracts. And so it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger every single year. What's an exciting part of what's happening with Ethereum. So if you remember from the first talk I gave when we talked about mining and how energy intensive it is, Ethereum currently runs on a proof of work type of component, which is a mining application. Soon, and they've been saying this for the last 6 months, and it's supposed to happen anytime now, but Ethereum 2.0 is going to be coming out very soon, which is going to move to a proof of stake concept. And if you remember that from last time, if not, I talk a little bit about what it means to stake coins in a little bit. But what's going to happen, particularly with that upgrade in Ethereum's network, we're going to see faster scalability. It's going to have faster transactions. And so a lot of the slowness in the network that's been happening and a lot of the complaints with the network are going to slowly start being weeded out, which will even give Ethereum more dominance. So nowadays, some very popular types of applications that come up in DeFi. So first and foremost, you have decentralized exchanges, you have something called stable coins, lending platforms, wrapped Bitcoins, and prediction markets. At least one of these you've heard me talk about before, which is the stable coins, but I'm going to go down the list for you. So a decentralized exchange. So as we mentioned before, if you want to buy, sell, trade a cryptocurrency, you have to go on to something called an exchange. Very similar like you would if you were buying a traditional stock. What a decentralized exchange is an online exchange where users can exchange currencies from one to another directly in a peer-to-peer type of network. So if you're familiar with Coinbase, for example, which is a very popular exchange and publicly traded company in the United States, their platform is owned by Coinbase. So if you log on there and you want to trade fiat for Bitcoin or something else, it's through them. You're not trading with somebody else. There are exchanges out there, and they particularly are exciting in parts of the world where their local currency is more volatile, where you can trade directly with an individual without even having a Coinbase there in the middle. So you can trade directly with one coin to another with somebody else, and it happens instantaneously. And I'm going to talk about how that is in a little bit. Stable coins, which I mentioned last time, it's actually, if you even remember part of where I talked about where regulation is coming, stable coins are a big like burr in Gary Gensler's saddle. So a stable coin is a cryptocurrency that's tied to an asset outside of cryptocurrency. It's usually pegged to the dollar to stabilize the price. The scary thing about stable coins is they are not regulated, and so there is no proof that they are actually tied to a dollar. But in many of these current decentralized finance platforms, you can get more interest than you could in your traditional, like if you held dollars in your bank. Lending platforms. So these are platforms that use smart contracts to replace an intermediary like a bank, and they help manage the lending back and forth. So for example, you can put up Bitcoin as collateral and get a loan for a certain amount of money. There are also platforms that allow you to put up your NFT as collateral. So there are ways that you can do collateral lending. That means that if you need, something, you have some, if you have a need for cash right now, you don't have to go to a traditional bank or go through any kind of financing in that sense. You can put up a cryptocurrency asset you already have as collateral and get cash. The benefit to that, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but primarily is around the taxes side of it. So it's like you can use it to borrow off of without having to sell the underlying asset, which gets really exciting. Wrapped Bitcoins. So what a wrapped Bitcoin is, it's a way to send Bitcoin through the Ethereum network so that Bitcoin can be used in the DeFi system. So what it really allows people to do is allows the individual owners to earn interest off of their Bitcoin by lending it out through a decentralized lending platform. So that's, again, another exciting part of this too. So if you own Bitcoin, you can then lend it out to other people and get interest on it. So there's this whole ecosystem that's being developed where, again, you are your own bank and you can be the one to decide who gets access to certain types of assets and at what price and what kind of interest you'll get from those. And then lastly, prediction markets, which have been a little more popular in the last couple of years, but it's basically a gambling. They're markets that allow you to bet on the outcomes of future events, like the elections or other kind of things. But the main goal of the DeFi version of them is that it has the same functionality as other kind of betting markets, but without an intermediary. So if you're into online gambling, prediction markets are very much that, but you just bet and gamble with cryptocurrency versus another type of thing. So really, what I want to talk about is basically how to get involved in DeFi. And to be perfectly honest, it is complicated. And so I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details. I'm going to give you an overview. And as always, after this, if you would like some more details, please reach out to me. Or again, there's a lot of resources available online to do this. It does get really complicated, and it is a emerging market, but it's important to know what's coming out there so you can choose whether or not you want to get involved. Basically, what's exciting about DeFi is that it allows participants to profit by leveraging your existing crypto capital. And why, again, that's really exciting is that you don't have to now, if you bought Bitcoin years ago or even recently, and it's worth a lot more, you don't have to sell it to then benefit from it and have to take a capital gains tax hit for it, or potentially lose an opportunity of getting more gains with Bitcoin. You can potentially stake your asset in a protocol that will allow you to earn profit, which is called yielding, that will also allow you to own the underlying asset as well, which is, again, really, really exciting. And I'm going to talk about easy ways to kind of get into the space. So first and foremost, how to initially get in to either DeFi or just lending itself. And so these are very common terms used in the space that you should get used to and understand. So ICO, IEO, STO, ILO, IDO. Basically, what these all are, these all describe one particular event. And that is when a project first comes out, it puts out its coins. And how it does it is the different version of here. So for example, an initial coin offering, that's where you would go directly with the project itself. An initial exchange offering, that's where a project who's coming out with a coin partners up with an existing exchange, a centralized exchange like Binance, and they would list the coin and you would buy it that way. A security token offering, again, was like a higher level of this, where you had to be an accredited investor. It's basically like an initial exchange offering, but you had to be an accredited investor to get part of it. And then when we get into the other parts of initial liquidity offering and initial DEX offering, again, we talked about what a DEX is. DEX is a decentralized exchange. And I'm going to talk about some decentralized exchanges. The most common ones are Uniswap, Bancor, and Balancer. It's basically this open exchange that just puts the coin up there with some extra liquidity, and people can choose whether or not they want to get involved in that as well. All of these terms, again, are used when somebody wants to get into a project when their coin first comes out. And how you do that depends on these definitions of these coins and what the project is. But the next phase of that is once you have the coin, what can you do with it? And this is what's exciting about what's happening in the DeFi space. It's not just Bitcoin. And I will use Bitcoin throughout most of this because, again, it's the most common coin. It's easiest to understand. But this, you could exchange and, exchange Bitcoin for any coin that you own. So first and foremost, lending. Why lending is exciting? So there are lending platforms that are offering users a high level of interest for locking in their underlying asset into a smart contract. And so again, you can use this with Bitcoin, you can do it with Ethereum. I've done this with a lot of other coins. And again, I recommend, if this is something you're interested in, to start investigating some sites that do this. But what you do is you lock in this coin, which means you can't move it around. It's stuck in this space for a agreed amount of time with a smart contract. And in exchange, they will pay you a much higher interest rate than you will ever get from a bank. So right now you can get interest rates ranging from 8% all the way. Some platforms go all the way up to 20, 25%. Now, that is exciting. And I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but you have to make sure you do your homework on this, because oftentimes the platforms that are offering you the higher interest rates are the ones that are a little more questionable, and things can get a little more sketchy on that. And I don't mean sketchy of like illegal, but like sketchy of like, this could end at any minute and you might lose your coins because the project itself could evaporate overnight. But again, the exciting part about this is it's entirely, the lending and borrowing process is governed by smart contracts. So there's not a risk of somebody not repaying you because they have to. And in order for them to borrow, they've had to put up some of their own coins as collateral. So if they don't end up paying you, you will get your money one way or another, which again is an exciting part of that. Staking. And so we've talked about in the past a proof of stake model around Ethereum or around other coins, which is a less energy intensive way to do it. What staking means, it's the process in which you lock in or stake your tokens into a smart contract. And oftentimes it means you earn the same type of token in return. So what usually this happens again is, let's say Ethereum, for example, you would agree to be part of the Ethereum smart contract, and they would allow users to use some of your Ethereum for trading. And in exchange for locking in this amount of Ethereum, you then get more Ethereum as a reward. So that's really kind of the rationale behind it. It really gives somebody a token reward and incentivize them for being part of the network. The more tokens and coins that are staked in the network, the stronger the network is, the faster the network can run. Also makes it more secure. And it also, again, it helps validate all the transactions that are going. And it's very difficult to, let's say, cheat the system because these are all staked in. And so again, with all of these, if you choose to stake your coins, it's for a extended period of time that's already kind of predetermined. And so the network knows exactly like how many coins it has in the network and how it can be run. And again, in exchange for that, you get more of the same types of coins back. Now, the next step of this, something called liquidity pools. Now, liquidity pools get a little more complicated, but they're also really exciting. So I want you to think about kind of how a standard exchange works, or even how the traditional markets work. If I want to buy or sell shares of Microsoft right now, I'll go on to my E-Trade account and I'll click buy. And I'm buying directly from somebody. So what an exchange does, or even what the markets do right now, they are matching up buyers and sellers. And these are individual buyers and sellers. And where the bidding starts playing, that's where the economics of the actual trades go. But if you start kind of thinking through how maybe this could move in a more fluid way, you start going to the next step, which is called a liquidity pool. What a liquidity pool does is a group of individuals get together and they pool their coins into a large into a decentralized exchange. And so there's not just one buyer or seller in the market. And so it's basically kind of think of it as a few individuals who have a larger amount of coins, have all staked their coins at the same time into this liquidity pool. And so nobody really is in charge for that, but they have provided instant liquidity to anybody who is buying and selling and trading within that. So you're no longer waiting for somebody to want to sell you a coin if you're doing it, or vice versa. It all exists in the liquidity pool. And in exchange for lending out a larger amount of tokens for this pool, these individuals get something called LP tokens, and they get interest on their coins. And so there's a whole other separate kind of level you can take with these LP or liquidity provider tokens. But just kind of think of it in the basic of this is like a liquidity pool is, and people get together, they've all pooled their coins, and it makes for instant buying and selling and trading, as long as the pool still remains liquid and there's enough leverage and all of that. The next step of it is actually becoming a liquidity provider. So as I just described a second ago, what a liquidity pool is, the next step is you individually being that liquidity provider, which means you go on to a Uniswap type of decentralized exchange, and you provide the liquidity for the liquidity pool. And in exchange, as I mentioned before, you get something called LP tokens, which are called liquidity provider tokens. Now, what you can do with those liquidity provider tokens, which is where things can get complicated and also can get messy. Now, the LP tokens themselves don't always guarantee a profit, but what exchanges like Uniswap will allow you to do is to take your LP tokens and then put them in another liquidity pool or another staking protocol. And so it's like another area where you're leveraging one pool against another. I don't want to go in too much detail of this because it gets really complicated. And once you start doing this, it becomes very volatile, because what happens is there's always a chance of a highly volatile pool of one another suddenly drying up. And so if one dries up, it causes a lot of other elements to come crashing down. And so this is something where if you choose to go in this, we should have a whole separate conversation about it. But it's totally possible way. And this is how some individuals are making, 20, 30, 40% interest on their coins, but they're also taking a very large risk to do that. And the smart ones are really paying attention, because this can evaporate overnight in a heartbeat. Another thing you can do is called yield farming. And this is actually the description of what I just talked about. And so you take your liquidity pool token like you got in Uniswap, and then you lock them into, rather than putting it into another pool, you can lock it into something called a yield farm. And what this yield farm will do is, again, give you interest for locking up this underlying asset in there. And again, it's the same thing of what could happen potentially if you start getting into a liquidity pool. The main interest of this is, with all of these, it's an exciting way if you're really doing your due diligence to make additional interest. But again, additional interest and additional due diligence is highly needed for this. Now, when we take a back step again, another part of what's happening in the DeFi space, which is particularly popping up almost every single day now, are DAOs. And I mentioned DAOs in my first talk. What DAO is, a decentralized autonomous organization. What is really exciting about a DAO at its core is basically a way for individuals to come together as a conglomerate, as shareholders in a project, and pool their money to buy something, basically. A DAO that made a lot of press last month was Constitution DAO, and I was part of that. It basically, a group of investors got together. There were a few, actually, 1,000 investors got together, pooled their money and were trying to buy a copy of the Constitution. The problem with that is because it's blockchain, everything was open. So the bidders at Sotheby's knew exactly what the ceiling was, and the project was outbid by somebody else. But it was a great use case for what groups can do. Nowadays, you're seeing more and more different types of DAOs coming out that basically allow, again, teams of individuals to pool their money using smart contracts and to create certain online communities. And so with that, individuals get to vote on what they do with the money, where it's focused on. They're driven by a certain code of ethics that's already been programmed into the smart contract. And because these DAOs are decentralized, they don't need a centrally governing authority. By putting your money in and agreeing to the terms, you've already agreed to it. So you're putting your hands back into the members. But these are just a few examples of the types of DAOs that are coming out there in the categories. And the categories are getting bigger and bigger every single week because more and more individuals are seeing the benefit of getting together with groups using smart contracts and running these decentralized organizations. Then the last little bit about what's exciting in the decentralized finance space, and I mentioned this during the NFTs, is something called GameFi. And what GameFi is the combination of video games and decentralized finance. So particularly if you've ever played a video game, you know that oftentimes, the smart ones anyway, make it very easy for you to buy in-game purchases. And so whether it's Candy Crush or even like an adventure game, you're always trying to buy things to up your level, up your skills, up your outfits, which are called skins, up your weapons. What's exciting about what's happening in the blockchain space, particularly then in the decentralized finance space, is individuals can now play to earn. So Axie Infinity is a great example of this. There's also dozens of other games that are coming out right now with this exact type of thing, where a user can log on to the platform. Sometimes you have to pay to be part of the platform. Most times it's free. And as you complete quests, you complete battles, you get rewards. And those rewards are actual cryptocurrency tokens. You can take those tokens and you can use them to buy more weapons, buy more in-game NFTs, or you can cash them out for local dollars and use them to pay your rent or to buy whatever you want. I think I mentioned this during the last NFT talk, but if not, there's a great documentary if you look up Axie Infinity I think it's Singapore. No, sorry, the Philippines. The Philippines. There was a group of individuals during the beginning of 2020 who lost their jobs, and they got together as a collective and they started playing Axie Infinity as a group, and they replaced their jobs on this video game and made enough money so that all of them could pay their rent, buy food, buy clothing, and again, not have to work a traditional job. And so this is coming more and more and more because of NFTs, because of the decentralized finance space, where individuals now can make a full-time living playing video games. So I want to kind of take a small side trip now on if you're looking at and getting involved in whether it's DeFi or buying initial coin or even buying any coins, like what to look for, how to not get scammed, because this is an important part, and this is something even right now very large institutions are looking at and are worried about. Because at the fundamental level, and this is something that everybody should keep in mind, every single one of these projects are still startups. So remember those terms I used, ICO, IDO, Those are not initial public offerings. So to do an initial public offering with the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, you have to go through a lot of due diligence and prove a lot of elements and show off what you're doing to potential investors, to the banks. It is very highly regulated. The cryptocurrency space right now is not regulated. There is no governing body who's looking at all these projects and deciding whether or not one is more valid than the other. some of that's happening right now. And to be perfectly honest, right now, there's a project at MIT that I'm working on that's around this very subject, because it is a problem and scams do happen and bad projects do get out there. So I want you to be able to protect yourself. So very quick, things to think about when you're looking at any project. If it sounds too good to be true, it's a scam. If anybody is telling you it's a guaranteed return, it's a scam. If there's somebody you don't know who keeps on contacting you, and this happens on Facebook, this happens on Twitter, this will happen on Telegram, any kind of messaging services, it'll also happen in your emails. Once you start getting involved in the cryptocurrency space, they will find you. It also happens sometimes on LinkedIn. If somebody's contacting you about how great their project is, and you are not an investor, or if you're not a VC, it is a scam. Stay far, far away. There are like small instances where this is not the case, but in general, those are terrible business practices. And anytime somebody messages you, just assume that it is a scam. Because what happens is how our minds work. It's different from what we really think. So everybody believes that they are very rational creatures and that we think something first and then, go through the other way and kind of, we only think through things that are rational. But that's actually not how it really works. Why these scams really, and these are like most big, large scams, is how our brains work is they try to go on our brains are set to go on autopilot as quickly as possible because it's a lot of processing power for us to think through things. And so what often happens is what our mind is, something will come across us and we'll hear it. We instantly think about it and we'll vet it within a split second. And at that moment, we will determine whether it's true or false. And from that moment, we will then form a belief around that. And we will either rationalize something or we will determine, again, whether or not that was correct or not. And so what you're trying to do in these particular moments is to short circuit your brain and to not make rash decisions. And so if somebody comes at you really quickly about a project that sounds too good to be true, it's better to stop, take a step back and to think about it and not go with your first gut, which oftentimes could be, this is exciting. I want to, I have a chance to make 10x, 100x my money. It's got to be true because I know some person. And why I say that is because I have been scammed by somebody who I thought was a friend of mine. And so this actually is a friend of mine. His name is Herbert. I've met him multiple times. Somebody spoofed his account and they sent me messages. And it happened a day where I was tired. I wasn't paying attention. I thought it was a little bit weird, but I trust him. I know him in real life, and he and I have talked about a lot of projects. Now, I only lost $1 because I thought whatever he was telling me it didn't make complete sense. But again, because this is coming from a friend of mine, my logical brain got shut off. Because if it came from anybody else, I would go, nope, this is a scam, block, go away from me. But because this scammer spoofed his account, I gave it the benefit of the doubt. And in exchange, I lost $1. But still though, that's, I put this out there because again, I'm very diligent with this and I have still been scammed. So be very careful about who's telling you information. The reality of things are, and so this is a snapshot from the MIT blockchain expo from last year. You are more likely to get scammed than hacked. And so if you look at this was like ransomware and scams from 2018 to 2020. And last year was really kind of the year of ransomware. That's kind of going down a lot. And again, a lot of people are a little more worried about potentially getting hacked and their things stolen, but primarily you are more likely to get scammed than hacked by giving access to your information. So some common scams to look out for. So first off, these are called financial scams. One of the most common types of scams are called high yield investment programs or HYPEs or HIPs. And basically it's what I told you about in the beginning. Somebody approaches you and say they're promising a huge, immediate, guaranteed return. They look really valid on the surface. A lot of these came out, particularly in the cryptocurrency space in 2017, 2018, where they're like guaranteed return of whatever, 20, 30%. And when you start digging a little deeper, you start realizing that they actually want you to invite your friends or sign up other people and pull you into a pyramid scheme. Again, anybody tells you you're guaranteed to get some money back, it's a scam. Make sure you run away. Phishing scams, very, very common. And it's not just like a cryptocurrency space, it's major corporations. Because again, you have to be very diligent. Scammers are getting more and more sophisticated with the emails they send you. What'll happen is someone will send you a text message or an email, and they're pretending to impersonate another company, another product that you know and trust. Like, look at what happened with me and my friend. They'll try to trick you into visiting a fake version of a website, or they'll ask you directly to give out your personal information. Anybody asks you for your personal information, such as your password, your bank account, your social security number, any details, automatically it's a scam. Don't fall for it. If there's a link in their product, don't just click on that link either. Be kind of like one step forward. Some obvious things to look out for if someone's trying to phish you. They'll say that they've noticed some suspicious activity. They claim there's a problem with your account. They say that you must confirm personal information. They'll send you a fake invoice. This happens to me a lot in some of my other email accounts. They'll ask you to click on a link to make a payment for a product you never wanted to or did. They tell you that you're eligible for a refund or cash back, or they offer you a free coupon for something. Like, just part of what you need to do with these is, again, is this short circuit your brain that's going to go, oh yeah, it's from my bank. Click, because that oftentimes will let somebody in. Other things to look out for. You don't have an account with the company, so why are they contacting you? Your name is misspelled. Like, look very closely. Your name is misspelled, or it's missing, or the email uses bad grammar. That's obviously, an easy one. The email is asking for your personal information, social security number, your ID, your passwords. Their email address, when you start actually looking at it, has an odd variation of numbers and letters, and it's not exactly right. Like, it's very easy to spell out the word like password, and then suddenly there's like some numbers in there that shouldn't be there. That there's just something about their email that doesn't look right. If that's the case, again, assume it's a spoof or they're trying to phish you and ignore it, move away. There are fake websites then that are designed to steal your coins and to steal different things from you. So this is an example, again, of kind of what you're looking for and how close they're related. So the real website versus the fake website, where they're, again, one or two things is off. And oftentimes these are pop-up websites. But again, especially in the cryptocurrency space, what's going to happen is these websites will pop up and they're going to ask you to input a wallet address or your private keys. And the moment you do that, then your money is gone and you're never getting it back. The other thing to worry about is actual fake projects that exist on Android and iTunes. So this staked wallet is a real snapshot from the Android and iTunes account. This is a fake project designed to steal your money. It's not a real wallet. Staked wallet is fake. It's a garbage project. And so you can't necessarily just rely on iTunes and Android to do the work for you. You have to be able to do the due diligence yourself and be very careful. Another thing to pay attention to is this little dot here in the corner, the padlock to make sure that your website is secure. That's a very important thing. When in doubt, make sure you type in the URL in by hand. Don't just click on a link in the website, because again, oftentimes it's very easy to click on something again. So when I click back here, this real website is called My Ether Wallet. Now imagine if those two L's were ones. It's very easy, if you're just, again, looking at it quickly, to not notice those small changes. So always look for those, and those are indications of fake websites. The main thing that you should do, and most recently I've been asked by some new individuals in the cryptocurrency space if they need a brand new computer. If you've had your computer for a while, you've downloaded a lot of browsers, you may want to get a new computer before you start adding additional wallets to it. What's happening now is hackers are getting clever, and they are adding different kinds of browser, like different ways to look at what you're doing on your computer through your browser extensions. And so your browser extensions, particularly like in Google, excuse me, or in Internet Explorer, could be adding malware to your computer. So make sure you run a lot of scans and really pay attention, because ultimately, if you have downloaded something as a browser extension, and you can see from, well, you can't from my screen, I have a few of those. I'm very careful with the browser extensions I do download, because they could be there just to scam your project. So I'm going to give you, so this is an example of a real fake project that a lot of people lost their money on. This happened in just a few months ago, actually. So this is called Squid Game Coin. It was called it's a rug pull. So rug pull it was a very popular term in 2021. It will be from 2022. Basically what a rug pull is, it's a project where a lot of individuals, the creators create a lot of fear of missing out. People pour money into it. This fake coin goes up in value, and then suddenly people can't get their money back out. And then the creators shut down the website and they walk away with the money. This is exactly what happened with Squid Game. From the end of October to early November, in a series of 2 weeks, the coin went from $0 to $2,861 a coin. And then that took it 11 days. And then within a matter of hours, it disappeared. The coin disappeared, the website disappeared, the founders of this project all disappeared, and anybody who invested in it lost their money. And so again, this is a great example of a company who got a lot of people suddenly excited because they were going through, there was a lot of action that was happening to it. It came off the Squid Game movie, so there was a lot of excitement around there, and they lost a lot of money. Things to pay attention to with this: make sure you look at the website of these projects. Are things misspelled? Are things pirated? Are they, do they just rip off other people's ideas? Look up the team members on there. Are they actual real? Click on their links. Click on the links of the addresses in each of these. Like, do your due diligence like you'd be an investigative reporter to make sure that everything is real, because people are hiding fake projects within these. Read their white papers. Do they make sense? Are they just plagiarized? A lot of those things will allow you to avoid some of those. So how do you actually pick then a coin to invest in if you choose to? There are over 10,000 projects. And so there's a lot of opportunities for that. If the idea of buying an individual cryptocurrency coin, again, is still, you're still hesitant about, and you don't want to get involved, this is the easiest way to get involved in the cryptocurrency space, is to buy publicly traded companies that already hold large amounts of Bitcoin on their balance sheets. So from Coinbase to MicroStrategy, PayPal, Square, Tesla, Galaxy Holdings, these are all publicly traded companies. They're all highly regulated, and they all own large amounts of Bitcoin. That's the easiest way to do it. Other than that, as I mentioned before, these are all startups. And so you need to treat them as such, and you really need to educate yourself. So the places to go to get educated in these: Twitter, Telegram, Facebook groups, Medium articles. There's a whole separate section of Twitter called Crypto Twitter, which you can get sucked into, which you start following individuals and seeing what they're tweeting about, why they're tweeting about. Like, you really should do your due diligence on all of these coins and find out why people are talking about that, why they're exciting. Start looking at the Medium articles of the different projects, of the different people writing about it. Nowadays, particularly, every day there's a new webinar that I get invited to come see about what's happening. There's a lot of conferences that are popping up. And so there's a ton more information that's available right now. If you really want to get involved but are still leery, join an angel group, join an investment club. I'm a part of a couple of these. As a collective, it makes it easier to spot good projects to get involved in. You also can easily spot scam projects as a group because you have the wisdom of the crowds together. You also want to start following some experts on Twitter, on YouTube, but you want to take their advice with a grain of salt. What's happening now, and you're seeing this like just yesterday, Kim Kardashian is getting sued because a project paid her to show off her project, and it was a scam. And so be leery of celebrities talking about projects, but start looking at what other individuals in the space are talking about. The best advice for this is start with what you know. First, look at the cryptocurrency companies and projects that already exist out there, the ones that have the biggest market cap, that have been around on these exchanges for a while. Their longevity usually means that they're not a scam. The scam projects are the ones who want you to buy now, and they want you to act fast, and they want you to not think about it. The projects that are real, the ones who are there for the long term, and they will take time to put out press releases. They will take time to put out marketing, like legitimate companies do. The other thing you should think about is something called the tokenomics of the project. And until now, you may have not have heard of this. But what a tokenomics is, and I think I talked about this a little bit in my first talk, it's how the coin is being used on the platform, on their service. Because there are a lot of coins, for example, we've talked about Dogecoin before. There is no tokenomic value of Dogecoin. Dogecoin is a meme coin. When you look at the papers and how it's used, it's not used for anything. It's just a coin that exists for the purposes of being a coin, versus something like Ethereum, which Ethereum is then a blockchain used to build projects on top of it. So just think about the different instances and how these are being developed, how they're being used, particularly again, because of the fact that there are 10,000 coins on there. One example I want to give you is Binance Coin. Binance Coin is part of the Binance exchange. What you can do, the tokenomic value of Binance Coin is three different things. If you own a certain amount of coins, you get discounts on trading fees for Binance. When trades happen, basically from coin to coin, there's a little bit of basically, because it's not usually a one for one, so a little bit of cryptocurrency left over. They call that dust. And so what they'll do is they call it sweeping up the dust. They will transfer those little bit that are left over into Binance Coin, which then gives it more value. Also, what Binance also does is, remember I said before about initial exchange offerings? Binance for a while was launching projects on their exchanges. And the only way you could get involved is if you had BNB coin. And so through these three things, Binance took their coin from $12 a coin a little over a year ago to now it's actually more than $438 a coin. So that alone gave it a strong tokenomic value. The last thing you should do is look at the technical analysis of it, which is basically how the coin is being traded, as well as, again, and this is when you really start kind of looking into companies, like what is their project really doing? Like, what is it? Like, what are they launching? What problem are they trying to solve? Like, really do your due diligence in these coins, because it's very important to treat them like a long-term investment. Now, again, we're wrapping up at the end of this. And again, I wanted to kind of give you just a basic overview of DeFi and then how to pick up projects. There's a lot of amazing projects that are coming out in 2022. And the best way to learn is by doing. So I encourage you, if any of this resonated with you, to get involved in some kind of way, in a way that you feel comfortable with. But whatever happens, do not get caught up in FOMO. No matter what somebody tells you, take a breath and think about it. Because the best practices with all of this are make sure that you're using trustworthy products and service. So don't just, again, throw your money at a coin like the Squid Game coin, where it's very obvious that they're just trying to take it. Make sure you start setting up multi-factor authentication on all of your trading. So on your phone, on your computer, like make sure you take advantage of that. Never tell people what your digital assets really are. It's a thing now people are doing with their NFTs. But if you really want to protect yourself, you'll be as like low key about this as possible. Make sure you're securing your digital assets in a few different ways. And it's like a whole separate talk on how to do that effectively. Part of that is, again, multi-factor authentication, making sure that you've got email addresses and passwords that are unique and secure, and to make sure that your computer and the hardware and software you're using for all of this is all backed up. Some of the things are coming out in the future that are really exciting. Again, we've got more decentralized exchanges. And so these are just some examples and names of them. So Curve, Uniswap, PancakeSwap, SushiSwap. I know there's a lot of swaps, but remember when I said before with with decentralized exchanges allows you to swap one for another. That's why they're saying that. These are becoming larger and larger. More coins are being added to them. It's really an exciting time if it's something you choose to get into, because you're going to have more chances to be a liquidity provider, to get involved in larger pools, and potentially take on some, and get compensated for taking on some risk. On the lending side of it, so Compound, Aave, MakerDAO, there's a few others that I've been playing with too. You can, again, start lending out your cryptocurrency in exchange for making money, which is exciting. Then you have, again, yield aggregators like CoinVex Finance and Yearn Finance, which again is a separate, deeper layer of the decentralized exchanges. You have insurance, so places like Armor and Nexus Mutual, where individuals can pool assets together to ensure that a project is going to work. And then again, NFTs, gaming, and the metaverse. Whole separate talks about each of those, but you can get paid now for playing games, which is exciting. The metaverse particularly is starting to become more of a reality with the virtual experiences. Actually, if I hear correctly, Apple's going to be coming out with some new products that way too. And then again, the NFT space, which I talked about last time, is exploding. And so 2022, you're going to see a lot more of these, and there's a lot of ways to get involved. But just if you choose so, just make sure that you're doing it in a wise way that you feel comfortable with. We've got a little bit of time for questions, and I can say a little bit later. But again, this is me. This is my contact information. After today, if you want to ask a question or just get a hold of me, this is how you do it.
Hi, Yuri. Thanks again. That was very informative, and you've generated lots of questions. I just want to start with a question about regulation. There's an audience who asked, what do you think of the Fed and Yale research conclusion that cryptocurrency not supported by governments should be regulated out of existence?
Regulated out of existence. That is a very loaded term. So I don't believe in that. I believe regulation, but not regulated out of existence. And particularly what I mentioned last time was Gary Gensler. So Gary Gensler is not against Bitcoin. Gary Gensler is against stable coins, because stable coins are not backed by anything. They say they're backed by a 1-for-1 for the dollar, but oftentimes they're not. And so you've got a lot of different companies coming out with ideas about that. So of whether or not their coins, their stable coin is legit or not. And you are actually seeing now governments step in with their own version of that. And so in order for the space to move forward, regulation needs to happen. Investors need to know that they're not going to be investing in the next Squid Game coin because the powers that be have fallen asleep at the switch. And so there has to be consequences, there has to be regulation. And once that happens, I honestly think that Ethereum and Bitcoin, and you're going to see a lot more projects explode because they know where to operate in and what area to move in. And they know they won't be, suddenly, depending on who's in power at the Fed, will come after them for one thing or another.
Very interesting. I think this will be in debate for a while yet. Yes. Our audience is also very interested in liquidity pools. So one asked, is it just like the old specialist system on the New York Stock Exchange, except that the single specialist firm is replaced by several liquidity providers?
Very good question. To be honest, I am not familiar with the specialist system you're talking about from the New York Stock Exchange, so I can't answer that question directly.
Yeah.
It sounds like, from the way the question was worded, that yes, it sounds like that's exactly what it is, but I can't say for sure because I'm not exactly sure what that is.
There's another question about the liquidity provider. Where does the interest payment derive from? Where does the interest payment derive from to pay the liquidity provider in the liquidity pool? Who is paying the interest? So
the actual pool itself. So if you, as I mentioned before, with staking, it's the pool itself is formed through a smart contract, and through the smart contract, there is already a predetermined interest rate. And so by providing liquidity, and again, it depends on how much liquidity you provide, In exchange for that and locking up your coins, you then get interest from that. And that comes from the pool itself.
Okay, gotcha. Now, one user here is wondering whether using an LP token is similar to a Ponzi scheme if a liquidity provider can take the LP token and use it to add liquidity to a different liquidity pool. Then is that a Ponzi scheme where the same liquidity is being counted in two separate liquidity pools?
That's a very good question. So I wouldn't use the term Ponzi scheme, but everything else you're describing it's very similar because it's not exactly the same liquidity, because you're basically, so you're taking, again, the LP token from one liquidity pool, and then you're staking it in another to yield farm, and you're creating liquidity from that. Now you're leveraging the old liquidity from the other pool, which is why if that pool suddenly dries up, so will this new yield farming. So I guess in one way, that's a gray area. I wouldn't call it a Ponzi scheme, but that's not a unfair description, to be honest. That's also why, again, this is why I've like, you definitely be careful when you get involved in these, because they can dry up and like bad things can happen very quickly. And I've seen it happen before.
Yeah, I think that would require some delicate balancing. Okay.
Yes.
So
I would like to use a term like highly leveraged. It's like being very highly leveraged in one area versus another. I think that's more of a term I would use, because you're basically borrowing money from one area for another, kind of, maybe.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
And then the last question for the evening is about GameFi. So this person is wondering, is there a better tokenomic within a GameFi project? We've seen a crash of Radio Kaka, I'm not sure, SAS Kaka, crypto mine and farmers world in a very short period of time. Is buy token or multiple token design superior in terms of stabilizing the economy?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with a couple of those projects, but so I'm going to use like Axe Infinity as because it really is the gold standard with this. What's exciting about what's happening in the GameFi space, particularly with these, is there is a better tokenomic value in like what Axe Infinity is doing. And it also gives more value to its NFTs because there is a reason to have the NFTs. So when I talked in the last time about, let's say, like art NFTs, the art NFTs are based off of the artist's reputation, and you're hoping that they don't create more than those. In the game environment, the NFTs are they're your skins, they're your weapons. And so you're encouraged to keep holding on to them and to keep using them, because as you use them, they gain more value. As you play the game more, you get more tokens. And so these in-game ecosystems have, in general, if they're done well, and not every game is designed equally, but again, Axe Infinity, I will just use that across the board because they're really good at this. Their tokenomic model is very good. And they've designed an entire ecosystem to keep you playing, but also to keep adding value to that. There's a few other games who are doing that as well. But particularly the gaming model, I think you're going to see more of those come up in 2022. And that's actually when individuals talk about how do we find ways for mass adoption, the gaming industry is one way for that, because gamers are used to in-game purchases. They're used to in-game economics and in-game environments where you're trading and buying and selling. Just in the past, when you did that, you were stuck on that game, and the money went directly to Sony or the other parent companies. Whereas now in the blockchain space, that trading and that economic value means that if you want to, you can pay your rent with it, or buy something else with it, or take that NFT in one game and transfer it to something else. And so it's just a bigger economic value that's expanding, and that's going to pull in more individuals into the cryptocurrency space and NFTs too.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Yuri, for that detailed description.
Of course.
So I want to thank you again and to thank everybody for participating today. If you have more questions, please join us for our last talk on February 10th. I think there'll be an opportunity to ask these questions or more questions as they come about. And as we navigate this new asset class and this new, I don't know, new industry, I suppose is a good word for it. But anyway, good night, everybody. And thank you.
Great. Thank you.